This is the Louie Tee Network.
In the lab room.
The views and opinions shared on this program are that of Louie Tee and In the Lab Room alone and should be taken exactly as they are given. If you are soft, easily offended, or can't listen to the criticism of your team, this program is not intended for you. This is pure, unadulterated football talk for the hardcore fan. Viewer discretion is advised. Welcome, you are in the lab room. I am your host, Lou. Thank you for joining me here on this program, 2014 NFL Lab Reports. Today we're talking about the New Orleans Saints taking a trip down south to the NOLA. 2014 NFL Lab Reports. New Orleans Saints. Strengths for the New Orleans Saints. This is a team that I knew getting Sean Payton back was going to help this team in ways you couldn't imagine. And I expected that. They came back. They did what I expected them to do. What I did not expect them to do was be as good on defense as they were a season ago. And we start there with the defense. Rob Ryan came in and transformed this defense into a juggernaut last season, and I was thoroughly impressed. I mean, the way that they made the switch from a 4-3 to a 3-4 defense, and I always say that there's a mandatory year of struggle. Well, that didn't exist in New Orleans last year. Rob Ryan got these boys to play. I didn't think you had enough pieces. I didn't think you had guys that could get after the quarterback. And it all just came together at once. It was a perfect storm, and guys played out of their minds. I mean, you had some guys balling last year. I mean, Jordan was out of his mind last year. Cameron Jordan, at one point I said, this kid's going to be a bust. That's what I said in my mind. Cameron Jordan is never going to live up to the hype of a first-round pick. Never. And then he went and he balled out of control last year. BOC, balling out of control. So was Akeem Hicks. I mean, he was all over the place. These guys were getting it done last season. And so I'm thinking, can they do this again? I don't know. But last year, 49 sacks. That was good enough for fourth in the league. You were getting off the field on third downs, 35% on third downs. Teams weren't staying on the field against you. And that leads to another one of our strengths that we'll talk about here in a second. You did a really good job against the pass. And again, that kind of goes hand in hand with those 49 sacks. You get after the quarterback, teams are going to find it tough to throw the football against you. And you stop the run. You were a really, really good defensive outfit last year. And I was impressed. You got it done on the defensive side of football. And that was a huge part of the reason why you were able to get back to the postseason. Because it was tough in the NFC last year. And you were one of the teams that made it tough. And it was because your defense. Because your offense is always good. Your offense is always top flight, top notch. It's always the defense that we are concerned about in New Orleans. And they got it done last year. And they were definitely a strength for this football team. You look at another strength for this team. And I talked about the defense getting off the field on third downs. Well, that takes us to another strength. Third down efficiency and time of possession on the offensive side of the football. And when you can get off the field on third downs on defense, what it does is it gives the football back to your offense. And there are a couple of things about the time of possession and the third down offensive efficiency. Both third in the league and both for this New Orleans Saints football team, by the way. So they were up there at the top of the league in terms of time of possession, holding on to the football, and also third in the league in third down efficiency on the offensive side of football. So they were getting it done. And that's great. While those numbers are excellent, there's another reason why you were up there towards the top of the league in time of possession. And that's not a good thing. And we'll talk about that here in a second. But you converting third downs, you staying on the field, and you working your way down the field is something to be proud of. It's something that helped you get to your 11-5 mark a season ago and helped you make it to the postseason. So that's something you want to continue to do. But we'll talk about how you can improve this stat a little bit later on in this program. And we'll talk about another strength of this football team in the meantime, and that's the passing offense. And, you know, I don't really need to go into deep detail as to why this is an elite passing game and why this is a strength of this team. You start with Sean Payton and Drew Brees, and then you can just work your way down if you like. You know, you could go through all the different options. Jimmy Graham, this offensive line with Grubbs and Jahari Evans at the guard positions. You can do what you like. I mean, you can kind of break it down any way you want. The slew of backs that they have in the backfield. It doesn't really matter to me. At the end of the day, it's Sean Payton, it's Drew Brees. They get it done. This passing offense was in the top 10 in just about every statistical category you could imagine. And in most of those categories, they were in the top 5. So they got it done, passing the football, you know, completion percentage, third in the league, amount of touchdowns, second in the league. You name it, they did it, and they were extremely efficient at it when it comes to passing offense. This is one of the best passing offenses in this league. They're one of the best passing year in, year out. You expect that from them. I would be more surprised if they weren't one of the best passing offenses than when they are, because I expect that from them year in, year out. And so you know that's a strength of this football team for the New Orleans Saints. So you go from the strengths of this football team to, of course, weaknesses for the New Orleans Saints. So you go to the weaknesses for this New Orleans Saints football team, and you start with the rushing offense. And I was a little disappointed. And the thing that I always say about this New Orleans Saints team rushing the football is their collection of backs. The sum of the parts is usually greater than the individual pieces that they have. And even though I want to believe that, I feel like if they were to just take Mark Ingram, and you made him a first-round pick for a reason, I feel like if you were to just take him and make him your feature back, this rushing offense would be much better because of it. Because I feel like he's got number one back capabilities in this league, and you're holding him back by platooning him with 3 or 4 different backs every single season. I feel like this kid has the utmost talent and ability to get it done in this league, and I feel like you're holding him back by not allowing him to tote the rock 22 times, to tote the rock 21 times in any given game, but instead giving him 13 touches and having him split the carries with Kyrie Robinson. And when you had Darren Sproles was getting touches, and you still have another guy that I feel like is underrated in this league in Pierre Thomas. And so I just feel like you want to get those other guys to football as well. And I understand that. You want to get them some snaps, and that's great. Everybody brings something different to the table, but I feel like if you're running the football, I think that Mark Ingram should be the guy. But 3.8 yards per carry isn't getting it done. I don't care any way you slice it. That's not getting it done. And you didn't have any games over 40 yards last season. None. Not one. None. Zero. Zilch. And as a football team, that makes you work harder. Remember I talked about that time of possession? That's one of the reasons why the time of possession is so high. I'm not done with that, though. We'll come back to time of possession here in a second. But that's one of the reasons why, because you're not getting explosive plays out of the running game. Every team loves to have explosive plays. Those plays over 40 yards, whether it's via the pass or the ground. You don't care how you get it. You just want it. And you didn't have any on the ground. And I think that kind of speaks to a number of things. And it's just, I feel like the biggest thing is these backs not getting an opportunity to get settled into the game. You're not getting into a consistent groove. Because if I'm Mark Ingram and I'm just starting to get lathered up and I'm feeling good, I'm starting to feel like I'm getting really in tune to what's going on in the game, and I'm starting to become physical, and yeah, this is getting good. They take you out. Now it's Kyrie Robinson's turn. Now you got to sit and wait for 3 possessions to get back on the field. Because Kyrie Robinson is in, then it's Pierre Thomas's turn. Now they got Darren Sproles in there. Now it's your turn. And it's almost like, with these running backs, it's almost like playing a pickup game of basketball. Don't you lose. Don't you? Because if you lose, you got to wait and wait and wait to get back on the court. And that's how I feel like this New Orleans Saints running back by committee group is. And to me, that sucks. And the proof is in the pudding. 3.8 yards per carry, not going to get it done. No gains over 40 yards, not going to get it done. You've got to find a way. And I feel like you need to define these roles on this team a little bit better and establish who's going to get carries when and how, and figure that out so that you can be more consistent rushing the football as a team. You go on to another weakness for this New Orleans Saints team. Field goal kicking. You're too good of a team to have this be an issue, because there's nothing worse than being a really good football team with a lousy field goal kicking situation. Because that can cost you. Look, I talk about this all the time. Field goal kickers are important in this league, because that's one of those positions that can put points on the scoreboard as well as take points off the scoreboard. You must have a kicker that can get it done, and Garrett Hartley, he was shaky from day one. I never liked that dude. I never trusted Garrett Hartley. Anytime you're babysitting a kicker and you got to employ 2 kickers, look, I'm never about taking up 2 roster spots for field goal kicking. Anytime you got to babysit a dude and you got to bring in a veteran to make sure that the veteran can make the easy chip shot field goals and then he can kick the deep ones, I got a problem with that. Because if you're a good field goal kicker, you kick from anywhere. If you got a big leg, then you should be knocking home the 54-yarders as well as the 37 and 47-yarders. I shouldn't have to bring in John Carney to do that. That's embarrassing. And that lets me know there's a problem here and that you don't trust. We're not grooming kickers, man. Since when is it cool to groom a kicker? To bring him along? He's not a quarterback. Either you can kick it between those 2 yellow posts or you can't. And Garrett Hartley was never consistent at that. So even though you tried to bring him along slowly, that dude was trouble from day one. And so you had one of the worst field goal percentages last season in the league as a team. And you had to bring in Shane Graham last year at the end of the year to save the day. Look, you need to find a field goal kicker and stick with that dude. And if it's a veteran, I don't care who it is, just make sure it's a dude that can put it between the uprights, that's not going to cost you any games, that's going to be consistent. Just go with a guy that you trust. That's all I'm saying. And I think you got that guy on the roster. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But you can't have a field goal kicking quandary. That can't be a problem on this. You're too good of a football team for that to be an issue. Make sure you rectify that problem before it becomes a major issue down the line. Nip this in the bud. I don't want to talk about this again with this New Orleans Saints football team. And last but not least, turnovers were a weakness on this team. Not from the offensive side of things. Defensive-wise, you didn't generate any turnovers. You want to know the reason why you didn't win your division? You want to know the reason why you didn't go any further in the postseason than you did? I can tell you why. Turnovers. You didn't force enough of them. Look, this Saints team broke dead even in the turnover differential. You were 0. You weren't plus or minus. You're too good. Your defense was too good last season. And your offense is too good for you to not be in the plus category. Drew Brees and his offense only turned it over 19 times last year. That's it. That's it. That's all. So that means you only generated 19 turnovers as a team. 12 interceptions, 7 fumble recoveries. And get this, you were the only team in the entire National Football League to not record a defensive touchdown. The only team. Every team in the league got at least one defensive touchdown, except for you. And just to put this in proper perspective, you had 19 total forced turnovers last year. There were 9 teams in the league. 9. Okay? So we're talking about a fourth of the league. 9 teams that had at least 19 interceptions by themselves. Not counting fumbles, just interceptions. 9 teams had 19 of those by themselves, not counting fumbles. And you had 19 total turnovers forced, interceptions and fumbles combined. So you've got to force turnovers. And that's the part of that time of possession that I talked about. This is the reason why you had that time of possession advantage, but it's not a good thing. I want you to have an advantage in time of possession for all the right reasons, not the wrong ones. And this is one of the reasons why it wasn't a good thing. Because your team, even though you were getting off the field on third downs, that's great. You were forcing punts. And then your offense had to drive 85, 88, 92, 89 yards consistently. And that eats up time off the clock. And they weren't getting explosive plays through the running game. You know, and they look, Drew can stroke it. You know, he'll pick up 45 yards on the pass, but you're still eating up time getting out of the field. Anytime you got to go 89 yards on a march. I know the Saints are going marching in, but still, it takes time. And that's why the time of possession was so high in New Orleans, because you constantly had to drive the length of the field to score points, because this defense wasn't creating short fields via turnovers. You want to take that next level step? You want to go from 11-5 to 12-4 and winning this division? Because I'm going to tell you what. Nobody wants to come to New Orleans. We'll talk about that later. Nobody wants to come to the Superdome. Nobody wants to go there. But you got to get turnovers. That's going to be the thing that takes you over the top. If your defense plays the way that they played last year, then you got to get turnovers. That'll take you over the top. No defensive touchdowns? Really? The only team in the league not to do so? Got to clean that up, New Orleans. Got to be better than that. So we go from the weaknesses to camp battles in New Orleans. As you see behind me, I've got my big board to help me along this process, breaking down these camp battles as well as the experiment for this New Orleans Saints football team. We start with the camp battles, and the first one that jumps off the page at you, backup quarterback. We've seen a lot of these guys throughout the preseason because of Drew Brees and his oblique injury and surgery. Let me ask you this, Saints fans, because I don't know. Should I be worried about Drew Brees? Because I'm not right now, but I'm starting to be a little worried. Should I be worried? Or is this a lot of nothing and I just need to continue going on about my business as usual and just know that this offense is going to click on all cylinders and Drew is going to do what he does? Is that an okay assumption to make, or should I be worried? You tell me, because I don't know. I'm starting to get a little nervous. I'm not used to Drew Brees not playing at all in the preseason. Haven't seen him yet. Maybe he'll play in preseason game number 3. Maybe he won't. I'm just nervous. I'm not saying, I'm just saying let me know how I should feel, because I don't know. You tell me. But in case of an emergency, you got to have a solid backup in New Orleans, and it's a competition going on right now between Luke McCown and Ryan Griffin. Here's the situation. If Luke McCown is your backup, then I think you got to keep 3 quarterbacks. I think both of these guys have to make the roster because I think Ryan Griffin has the upside. Luke McCown's been in this league for a long time. He's a veteran. So, and then there's nothing wrong with having a veteran at backup quarterback. Most teams are comfortable with veterans because they've been in this league. They know how things go. They know the nuances and how to prepare themselves as if they were the starter. And so you trust in veterans more so than the young boys. But Ryan Griffin has the higher upside and he's younger. So you want him around. You don't want to put him out on the street and say, hey, stick around. We'll call you if we need you. You don't want to put yourself in that situation because somebody else is watching. Because he's performed well in the preseason. Other teams are watching. They'll take notice and they'll sweep him up real quick. You know, you'll blink and he'll be gone. So you'll probably have to keep him on the roster if he's not your backup. Now, if he does win the backup quarterback position, does Ryan Griffin, then you only have to keep 2 quarterbacks because then you can tell Luke McCown, hey, man, keep your phone by you. If we need you, we'll call you because nobody else is going to fight you over Luke McCown. You know, maybe he might get work elsewhere. Maybe he won't. But either way, you won't feel as bad if somebody takes Luke McCown off your hands if he doesn't win this backup quarterback battle. But if Ryan Griffin is gone, you'll feel bad about that. So I think if you need the roster spot, if you're pinching for roster spots, Ryan Griffin is your guy. If you feel comfortable in what you have and you really like Luke McCown and you trust him more so than Ryan Griffin and you don't think he's ready to be your backup quarterback, then you got to keep both of them and Luke McCown is the guy. So we'll see. I thought that Luke McCown played really well against the Titans in preseason game number 2. I really thought that he went out and showed that, hey, I'm the guy. If you need someone in an emergency to come in and something's wrong with Drew, I'm that guy. So I think that Luke McCown looked really good. But if you're pinching for roster spots, Ryan Griffin's your man. You go over here to fullback, and this is a situation where this was Eric Lorg's job in New Orleans, but he's injured, and you don't know when he's coming back. And if you're worried about his injury that much, he can't be on the roster. And if that's the case, then you go with the next best thing, Greg Jones. He's a veteran, been in this league. He understands what to do at the fullback position, can catch it a little bit. You can hand him the football in situations where you need a yard or so. He has experience carrying the football. Or you could go with the young fella, Austin Johnson, second-year man out of Tennessee. These are all options at fullback. If Eric Lorg is healthy, he's your man. If he's not, and you don't know when he's coming back, then you just got to pull the plug on that and move on. You cannot sit here and wait for this guy to get healthy. Either he's going to come back, be healthy, and be the fullback that you thought he could be when you got him, or you got to move on to somebody else. We'll see what you do at fullback because that is a position that is important in New Orleans. This is a situation where I feel like you can't do both. It's one or the other. You either keeping 6 receivers and 3 tight ends or 4 tight ends and 5 receivers. I don't know which one you're going to do. I'm leaning towards 6 receivers because I feel like the tight ends that you have, the 3 that you have are really good. They all have a niche carved out for themselves on this team and that you don't have to carry a 4th tight end if you don't want to. Whereas the receivers, I feel like one of these guys could go down to injury and you still have another guy that you feel really good about. And you don't want to cut ties with any one of these guys because if you do, they're probably going to end up on somebody else's team. So I feel like 6 receivers is the way to go. Let's talk about these receivers and these tight ends quickly. Marquise Colston, Kenny Stills, Brandon Cooks, Robert Meacham, Nick Toon, and Joe Morgan. Now, Joe Morgan would be the odd man out if you decide to keep 5 receivers. And then by virtue of that, let's run down these tight ends quickly. Jimmy Graham, Benjamin Watson, Josh Hill, and Nick Jacobs, your undrafted rookie free agent out of McNeese State. Now, here it is. If Joe Morgan makes this roster, then Nick Jacobs can't. Simple as that. if Nick Jacobs makes this roster as an undrafted rookie free agent, then Joe Morgan can. And that's basically how it's going to go. Barring injuries here, again, if Nick Toon goes down again, and you know I don't like Nick Toon. Nick Toon, only on Nick Toon. If Nick Toon goes down with another injury, then Joe Morgan automatically assumes his role on this roster, and Nick Jacobs now has a shot at making this roster. Or another receiver could make this roster, like a Brandon Coleman, a guy that is an undrafted rookie free agent out of Rutgers, could go from practice squad player to all of a sudden on the active roster. We'll see. You never know what could happen. You never know what the dynamic could be here. But for my money, I feel like, to be honest with you, Robert Meacham and Joe Morgan are the same guy. I said this last year. I'll say it again. They're the same guy to me. I don't think you need both of them, but you're comfortable with Robert Meacham. You know, Joe Morgan is a younger, more explosive to me version of Robert Meacham. But if you want both of them, who am I to tell you not to keep both of them? Just know that you can't keep him and Nick Jacobs. You really like Nick Jacobs because he can block. He can help you on special teams. But if he doesn't make the roster, he can always be stashed away on the practice squad. And so I think that's what's going to happen. You're going to keep 6 receivers and end up keeping only 3 tight ends. You move on to linebacker, and this was probably the most impressive position on this team last season. At least from a wow perspective. I was blown away by the linebackers because I thought that you were going to struggle. And I thought you were going to struggle because these linebackers weren't going to be ready to do what it is you need linebackers to do in a 3-4 defensive alignment. I thought you've got enough pieces along this defensive line. I said you've got enough guys to do work on your D-line. You had the big nose tackle out of Georgia. You had Akeem Hicks. You had Cameron Jordan, and I thought he was a more natural fit for this 3-4 defense along the defensive line. So I thought you had pieces. You know, I didn't think you were going to be hurting along the defensive line. And then you had depth, too. I thought this is where you were going to struggle right here. You know, you were asking Will Smith to stand up at one point. I was like, oh, man, this is going to be ugly. This is going to be ugly. But guys stepped up. Junior Gillette had a monster season last year. Guys stepped up along this group. And you got better at linebacker. You know, you went out and you drafted Kyrie Ford, Ronald Powell, a guy with tremendous upside. If you could just get the most out of him. So let's run down this list of guys quickly. Junior Gillette, Curtis Lofton, David Hawthorne, Paris Harrelson, Ramon Humber, Kevin Reddick, Kyrie Ford, Ronald Powell, Keontae Dawson, Kyle Knox, and Victor Butler. Now, that's 11 guys. You're only keeping 10 of these guys. Here's the question you got to ask yourself. Is Victor Butler, and he was a guy that you went out and got in free agency when you were making his switch to 3-4, and then he went out and tore his ACL, and he's not back yet. This is the question you got to ask yourself. Is Victor Butler going to be able to come back and be healthy? How long is it going to take him? Because you got guys that want to play football right here. These 10 guys that I named before him, they all want to play football. They all want a spot on this roster. And Victor Butler right now, you don't know what you're getting out of him, and you don't know when he's going to be back. If you're doubting his ability to come back within the first 6 weeks of the season, he can't make this roster. Even if you can put him on a PUP list, you got guys that's trying to play football here. And so if he's going to be back before that PUP list 6-week mandatory period, and you feel like he can help you within the first 4 weeks of the season or so. And really, if I'm the Saints, I want to see this guy running around before I cut somebody that I've been working with throughout camp this entire time. A guy that I know can help me right away. If I'm not sure about Victor Butler, and I see these 10 guys balling in camp, giving me everything they've got, and I know what they're going to bring to the table, I think you just got to go ahead and say, hey, Victor, man, I thought we would have had a chance to do something big, but it's not in the cards, man. You got to go. You got to go. Because these young boys, Kyrie Ford, Ronald Powell, they making this roster. You know, the first 6 names I ran off, they making the roster. You know, Kyle Knox is the guy that could be on the edge of making his team or not. But I know he's healthy. I know he's playing. So it's not looking good for Victor Butler. That's all I'm saying. You move on to the offensive line, and this offensive line is pretty much etched in stone. It's going to be 8 guys that make the team as offensive linemen, but that last spot on the team is up for grabs. Marcel Jones and Senio Kaledame are your 2 guys battling for that last position along the offensive line. Both are guards. I think Marcel Jones holds the key to this position because of his versatility and the ability to play tackle and guard. I think it's going to win him out in this situation, and he's going to be the 8th and final offensive lineman on this football team. You look at kicker, and I talked about the struggles of this position and how you can't allow this position to be your undoing. Pick a kicker, find a guy that's consistent, and move on. Shane Graham was that for you last season. Kicked the game winner in the postseason against the Eagles. He's earned the right to have a chance to be your kicker. And even though he's been a little skittish in camp, he's a veteran with a lot of experience, a lot of mileage that has been consistent throughout his career. I don't know if I want Shane Graham kicking a 52-yard field goal anymore, but I know Shane will pound it home from 49. And it might not seem like that big of a difference, but it's a huge difference. And so, no, you can't send him out on the field for a 53-yarder. He's not one of these young boys with a big, huge leg. But for what you're looking for him to do, which is be money from 40 to 49, that's the money distance in the league for me. For what you're going to ask him to do, knock home all the 30-yarders, knock home all the 40-yarders, he's going to do that. And he might even be able to sneak the occasional 50 or 51-yarder home too. So go with Shane Graham. Derek Demke is a kid that he's young, he's inexperienced. We've been down this road before. We're not trying to go down that road again. Go with the guy that you know. Go with what you know. I'm all about comfortability, especially at the field goal kicking position. I want to go with the guy that I'm comfortable with. And you should be comfortable with Shane Graham. So you go from the camp battles to the experiment, and I have entitled this experiment, "Them Know Your Boys, Baby." So what these Know Your Boys gonna do? Let's find out what they got in store for us in 2014 via this experiment. Them Know Your Boys, baby. Research question. With this defense stepping up big time last year and the offense on tilt with Drew Brees, can the Saints show that last season was no fluke and reign supreme over the NFC South? Look, there's nothing fluky about your offense. I'm not even talking about them. Now, I do have some concerns about Drew Brees. I want you guys to make me feel better about that. I already asked you to do that. But in terms of this defense, you got to prove to me that last year wasn't an aberration. Last year was legit. I need proof. Proof of purchase. I'm buying what you're selling. I just want you to reinforce the fact that this defense is legit. Because you could have just went off everybody. Because guys had career years. It's not like you had guys that are consistent, play consistent football. Cam Jordan went off last year. Junior Gillette went off last year. Akeem Hicks went off last year. Everybody went off on this defense. So what I'm saying to you is, show me again. I need an encore. So I need to know that that wasn't a fluke, because I know the offense is going to get it done. If Drew Brees is healthy, the offense is going to get it done. Show me that the defense can do that again. Hypothesis. If this defense plays like it did a season ago, and this offense is even more explosive, then the New Orleans Saints will win the NFC South. I think that's a pretty much direct, point-blank statement. I don't think I need to really elaborate on that. You get turnovers. Your defense is as good as it was last year. Drew Brees with Brandon Cooks now inserted in this offensive lineup with Jimmy Graham. If everybody stays healthy and you're explosive on offense, why can't you win this division? You were a game away from doing it last year. I feel like you're a better team this year. Why not? Materials needed. Cool breeze. Cool breeze. And I remember when I was growing up, there was a song by a dude named Cool Breeze. You better listen to your corner and watch for the hook. And you need Cool Breeze. You need Drew Brees to continue to build upon his Hall of Fame career that he has. And again, is he healthy or not? I don't know. You know, I'm a little worried. Maybe I shouldn't be. Maybe I should be. Again, I'm looking for you guys to ease this tension that I have. But we know what he is as a leader. We know what he is as a passer. He's cerebral, pinpoint accurate. Defense makes a mistake. He takes advantage of it. I need him to continue to lead this team. And you got new weapons. He's got some new toys to play with. You lost a huge part of your offense in Darren Sproles. You're hoping Brandon Cooks picks up that slack and then some. Cool breeze. It needs to be flowing all season long. Cool breeze. A new Cooks in the kitchen. I said this before and I'll say it again. I said this during the draft wrap-up series. This division is going to regret that the Arizona Cardinals allowed the New Orleans Saints to come up and get this kid. Because he's dynamic. Now, he's going to do a couple of things this year that's going to piss you off. You know, you already seen him drop a touchdown in one game. I want to say that was, was that him? Might have been him. I think he dropped a touchdown in one of these preseason games. But the kid is dynamic, okay? This kid is dynamic. And he's going to fumble once or twice, too. You know, he's very, very loose with the football. He's going to fumble once or twice. But that is going to be diminished and overshadowed by all of the good that this kid is going to bring to the table. And because he is so explosive, it's going to open up a world of avenues for everybody else on this offense. As if it couldn't get any worse. Look, Jimmy is already a problem. And we're going to talk about Jimmy literally in a second here. Jimmy's already a huge problem for defenses to have to contend with. You can stretch it with Kenny. Kenny is a dude that, you know, can run all the intermediate routes. You fall asleep at the wheel, Kenny will run by you. Marquise Colston does all the dirty work. And now you got to worry about Brandon Cooks. Reverses and jet sweeps and 9 routes and hitches and wide receiver screens and slants. You name it, he's going to be a problem. Good luck, NFC South. I already talked about this. There's a new Cooks in the kitchen. And as we all know, they do a lot of cooking in New Orleans. And there's a new Cooks in the kitchen. Know your boys. Know your boys. I'm talking about the defense. Y'all got to step up. Last year, you stepped up and were way better than I could have ever imagined in my wildest dreams. I never thought this defense was going to be on par with some of the best. You gave up 19 points a game last year. Anytime you giving up under 20, that's elite defense, my friends. Because in this league, offenses are going to score up over 20 points. So if you're giving up less than 20 a game, oh, you're going to win double-digit games. The only way that you not going to win double-digit games giving up less than 20 on the defensive side of football is if your offense is anemic. And your offense is scoring less than the defense is giving up. You get what I'm saying? 3 touchdowns and you win. 2 touchdowns and 2 field goals and you win. When the defense is giving up 19 a game, 2 touchdowns and 2 field goals, you win. That's 20. I can do the math. Yeah, that's 20. I didn't have to go to college for that. That's 20 points. You're going to win a lot of games. But this is what's going to put you over the top. Know your boys. Turnovers, man. Gotta force turnovers. You didn't do it enough last year. 49 sacks. That's great. Force some fumbles with those sacks, man. Force some errant throws. Pick the football off with them sacks, man. With that pressure. Force turnovers. You got to. Because you didn't do it enough last year. I want you to play with the same intensity, the same tenacity that you played with last year, but amp up the turnovers. That's the only thing I want you to change. Get pressure on the quarterback. Stop the run like you did last year. Get turnovers this year. You got to know your soldiers this season. Know your boys. Get turnovers. Jimmy Graham. He's a man. That boy is bad. And I saw Jimmy out there being bad. Bad, not bad meaning bad, but bad meaning good. I saw him out there dunking over the goalpost, man. Jimmy was sending a statement, and I'll talk about that on another program. I'm going to talk about that on PDS this week. But Jimmy was sending a statement, and I can respect that, man. He's a problem. Everybody knows it. You can't stop him. You can only hope to contain Jimmy. Now, Seattle, they feel like they have the recipe for stopping Jimmy. I don't think they do. You know, I want to see them try that in New Orleans. You can do all the little bully tactics and all of that stuff in Seattle. You know, that works out there. Try that in the Dome. Try that in the Dome, man. Jimmy's a problem. I was a little disappointed that he didn't get the football more in that playoff game. And I don't know if it was a lack of trying, a lack of effort, or they just were playing that good of a defense. I don't know what it was. I don't care. The fact of the matter is, Jimmy Graham, he's a man. And he's going to be a huge part of the reason why this Saints team goes wherever they go. Whether it's to the top of this division, if it's second place again, third place, fourth, whatever it is. If he struggles, if he gets injured, if he's not playing up to his level and capabilities, you're going to struggle. But I don't think that's going to be the case. He's not going to struggle. He's going to be Jimmy Graham. And you know why? Because he's a man. He's a grown man that makes big plays. And this offense is only as dangerous as Jimmy Graham is on a consistent basis. And so if he's doing what it is he does, teams have to focus in on him. Now you got Brandon Cooks running free. Now you got Marquise Colston running over the middle wide open. Now you have Kenny Stills, Robert Meacham, Joe Morgan and company racing down the field. That's all starting with Jimmy Graham. He's a man. And last but not least, Peyton's place. Sean Payton and his New Orleans Saints football team, they're deadly at home. And I talked about this, and I've talked about it plenty of times. Seattle has the #1 home field advantage in this league, but not too far thereafter. It's these Saints. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Nobody wants to come to the Dome. You were 8-0 last year at home. Can't get any better than perfect. And that's what you were. So this is my whole thing. If you can find a way to wrestle some home field advantage, and maybe you can't get throughout, but if you can just win your division and ensure that you get a home playoff game, I can assure you, I can book you in the divisional round. Okay? I can book you in the championship game if you want to get a first round bye. I can book you a place there. Because nobody's coming in the Superdome and beating you in the postseason. That doesn't happen. You don't even lose in the regular season at home. Postseason, it's definitely not going down. So if you can just play well enough to win your division, I can book you a ticket to the NFC Championship game. Now, if you're feeling froggy and you want to leap, go get home field throughout, I could put you in the Super Bowl. I could put you up in the Super Bowl. I can go ahead and book you some hotels, get your travel arrangements squared away for you. If you want to get home field throughout, I could put you in the Super Bowl in February. I can go ahead and start making your travel arrangements right now. How good you want to be? Because don't nobody come into Peyton's place and leave with W's. They don't do that in New Orleans. They may do that in other places around the league. But cats don't come into the Superdome, the Mercedes-Benz Superdome, and come out with W's. It don't happen like that in New Orleans. So, my question to you is, can you find a way to get some home cooking in the playoffs in Peyton's place? If you can, then you got places to go. If you don't, then you got to be a road soldier. And I don't know if you can do that or not. Independent variable, defense. I talked about this already. I'm not going to harp on it that much longer. If this defense can play the way they did last year and add in that missing ingredient called turnovers, this team is going to be dynamite, because the dependent variable is point production. If this defense is generating more turnovers, shorter fields, hey, it wouldn't hurt you, it wouldn't kill you to get in the end zone on defense once or twice too. That always helps. The offense will take donations. They'll take donations. Your point production will skyrocket. Because this offense, you give them a short field, they get in the end zone. You score on defense yourself, that's free money. I'll take free money all day long. So, defense is the independent variable. The point production will go up if you can provide this offense with shorter fields via turnovers, and the defense is responsible for that. The constant, Superdome, I already talked about it. Home sweet home. Saints were 8-0 last year, and since Sean Payton has been your head coach, you've been one of the toughest teams at home in the National Football League. If you can find a way to extend the season at the Superdome, play 9, potentially 10 games in the Superdome. If you play 10, you're going to the Super Bowl. If you play 9, I can only pencil you in as far as potentially the NFC Championship game or the divisional round. It's all dependent on how good you are. Is that a wild card weekend home game as a 4 seed, or is that a divisional round home game as a 2 seed? Or is that a divisional round game as a 1 seed, and if you win, you go into the championship game at home? I don't know, but the Superdome is the constant for this New Orleans Saints football team. And so we end up at the conclusion. What does this all mean for the New Orleans Saints? I'm drinking, I'm knocking back some of that know your boy punch. You heard me? I'm knocking it back. Is Drew Brees healthy? If you can assure me of that, and if the defense looks anything like they looked last year, and you can sprinkle in chemical X, turnovers, I got this team going 12-4 and winning this division. And I think it's going to take 11 or 12 to win this division. I think you can get away with 11-5 and still win this division. But I think you're 12-4, to be honest with you. 12-4 requires you to go 8-0 at home, 7-1 at home, and you're 11-5. Now, I got you going 3-3 in the division. I could easily see you going 4-2 in this division. However, I think every single team in this division is going to jump up and bite you once. And that's fine, as long as they don't do it at home. I don't want teams thinking it's okay to come into New Orleans and win. So you need to keep up that mystique and that magic at home. If they want to bite you at their place, fine. It's okay. It's fine. As long as you take care of business at home, you're going to be in the playoffs, you're going to win this division, you will be fine. You are the best team, most well-rounded team in this division. Carolina plays defense. Their offense is shoddy. Atlanta, top-notch offense. defense garbage. Okay? Tampa Bay, they don't know who they are yet. They still trying to find themselves. All right? So you got everything. You got the offense, you got the defense. I just need consistency. That's it. I just need consistency and turnovers. You do those things, I'll see you in January. Don't worry about it. And so that's going to do it for this New Orleans Saints lab report. I thank you for joining me. If it happens in the National Football League, whether big or small, we cover it all here in the lab room. Come back and join me as we continue to work our way towards the end of this program. San Francisco 49ers are up next on the docket. The San Francisco treat. Ding! See you next time. Like the content? Want more? Sub up.